Well, thanks a lot for showing up to this late afternoon session here up on the 8th floor. The title of the session is How to Define Your International Network Strategy. Just a few words on myself. My name is Valentina. Since 5 years working in affiliate marketing and representing today Meta People and performance marketing agency in Europe with offices in 25 markets worldwide with more than 850 experts. I'm supervising 25 plus advertisers in more than 45 markets, so I had pretty often already the opportunity to define basically this first step into a program setup by defining how to best choose a network and what strategy could be underlying that. As you may see, in regards to our references, we used to work within different branches, so from the retail over to the travel sector, as well as on fast-moving consumer goods in the cosmetics and the contractual parts within the telecommunication business. But let's deep dive into how to assess a potential network strategy when setting up a new program. To start off, it must be clear that there is no one-size-fits-it-all approach, but that you would have to more or less define for each and every advertiser an own tailor-made strategy depending on different factors that need to be accounted for. However, there are some underlying aspects that more or less recur on a frequent basis, and that should be at the core of the strategy definition in order to have a kind of framework how to find the best network that is going to help reaching your targets. First of all, it would be for sure interesting to see what kind of affiliate marketing programs do exist and what are their potential and what are the different targets that are behind there. So what is the business model that they are operating? Are they more based on a cost per action or more on a CPL-based program setup? And what is the brand awareness and the explanation need of your product and services that you're going to provide? Because all this may heavily influence on the setup of your program and also on the volumes that can be expected of that. If you have a look to how successful and how many programs are active, then you will see that the most promising ones will be those with or of brands having a high brand awareness and a relatively low explanation need on the one hand side, and do also have a reasonable average basket value. So here you can opt for an affiliate program and be pretty sure having at least a high potential. As it is always in life, there are two parts of the coins that need to be taken into consideration when defining a strategy, both internal factors and external factors. Especially the internal factors will be KPIs that a lot of the networks will tend to ask you in order to make also an appropriate offer to you. So what is your average basket value? How many unique visitors do you have on your page? What is your internationalization strategy? So which markets are you opting for? How is the available budget? Is it restricted in a way or is it an open one? And last but not least, which is surely of interest for yourself, is what is the margin that I can achieve with the product or services that I'm offering, and how much cost am I able to burden with my affiliate marketing activities. On the other hand side, nevertheless, you also need to see what your surroundings are doing. So making, first of all, a proper competitor analysis to double check what are the competitors doing, in what kind of networks are they active. Is there maybe one network that is that has an expertise in the branch I'm operating in? Also important might also to see what are the markets that I want to enter and how mature are they? How dependent will I be from a local person on the spot that might help me out because I'm not a native speaker and I do not have the contacts there. As you all know, affiliate marketing is a people's business, and so it's particularly important to be on the spot and being able to communicate with your partners. On the other hand side, also an important aspect might be in what kind of branch am I active, and does there maybe exist a specialized network, a so-called niche network, which I might add into my overall network strategy in order to profit at the fullest from the potential and having a possibly as big as or biggest possible affiliate base then. For sure, both the internal and the external factors need to be considered both all together and align them in order to find the best strategy possible. Especially when it comes to affiliate marketing, the selection of the markets that you want to operate your programs in can have a very decisive impact on what kind of networks to select and the overall strategy that you want to define. Affiliate marketing has some markets in where it is very matured, so-called core markets where it all started up 20 years ago, and where you can be sure to find a very matured base on the one hand side when it comes to advertisers, on the other hand side on professional working top affiliates, but also on experts within the network landscape. Nevertheless, there are also those so-called advanced markets that are already quite big, where there are quite some networks working in there on an international approach, also with partners that are very international, working cross-border. And then you have emerging affiliate markets. And here it is particularly important to have someone on the spot educating basically the affiliates, because affiliate marketing is still not that known in the market, and those needs kind of explanation and training in order to increase the publisher base. So we tried to show off in a map how we would rate the maturity level of the different markets, and looking at Europe, for example, it's very fragmented from UK and Germany as very mature markets over to, for example, France and Italy that are quite advanced, but not at the same level as the UK market is, for example. But for example, when looking at the Eastern European markets, then affiliate marketing is still in their baby shoes, more or less. It's emerging. It's still a little bit exotic and a niche. So depending on which market you would want to enter, the network you should operate with can vary decisively. We try to cluster a little bit the landscape when it comes to networks, and defined 4 different types. 3 of them are basically so-called public networks, subdivided into global, international ones, local, regional ones, and so-called niche networks. And on the other hand side, as contrast to that, so-called private networks that are basically technology or tracking platform and providers. A global network is a network with a big international reach, covering several markets, maybe focusing on a specific region or continent. For example, specialized in the European market, for example, and they tend to have a very broad affiliate coverage also on international partners that are working cross-border. Examples are, as you all for sure know like AWIN, Commission Junction, Linkshare Rakuten, or Trade Doubler for the European market. As a contrast to that, there are local networks, so those that are operating maybe just in one specific market or in a smaller region that is maybe bound together because of the language that is spoken, for example. They have a focus normally on very local affiliates, so normally you will find a difficulty to encounter cross-border international partners in such a network, because those tend to work with the international ones. An example of local networks might be Soikos, for example, for the Latin American market, or Admirula for South Africa, Arabi-Eds for the MENA region, and so forth. Niche platforms or networks are basically focusing on a specific branch. So, for example, Finance Ads is an European network that is focusing on contracts. So everything around insurances, financial services, telecommunication, and so forth. GamesPipe, based on gambling, or Track Delight, which is specialized on fashion retail. So depending on the branch you are in, it might be that there is a specialized network that could be as well considered. And then, as a complete contrast to those three types, there is also the possibility to decide to opt for a private network. So a tracking platform where everything will be handled then by yourself, where there does not exist a publisher base, so where you would have to do quite a lot of the work that you normally tend to receive from an account manager of the public networks would lie at your responsibility, with the possibility, however, to save lots of costs, because the override normally is way lower. Provider are, for example, Performance Horizon or Cake as an example of those kinds of networks. So depending on your actual strategy, each and every one could be a valid option depending on what your targets are, what your personal resources are, and the markets you want to operate in. So we tried to give you an overview. Basically, all the slides can be regarded a little bit like a guideline or checklist that you can use afterwards. That's why they are pretty crowded with information, so that you can step by step follow the questions that you should ask yourself before determining your strategy. And depending on what your first situation is, decide which kind of a network would work best. For example, if you know that you're going to operate your affiliate programs in exotic markets like the MENA regions, but you don't have any information on those markets, you don't have persons on the spot, then for sure you will be dependent on the services and the support provided from a local network. If you are a very big brand and you just want to operate in the US market, for example, you're sitting in the US market and you know the affiliate base, why not go for a private network solution where you can do everything hands-on in the way you want to do it. So there it depends what the starting point is and what to decide on. What you should also take into consideration is whether or not to have a single network strategy, which is normally what you see most in the markets, but both can have their advantages or disadvantages. So a single network strategy for sure will help to reduce costs, because you can bundle multiple markets and entire volumes and give it to just one provider, and this will have for sure your bargain position and reduce then costs, especially if you grant the network a so-called exclusivity. Nevertheless, it might be that it makes sense to add a second network at least, depending on which market you are in. So maybe having a coverage of a global network in which you're operating all markets, but then select specific local networks for some markets that are of importance, or where you do see that you struggle without having a support on the spot, or as mentioned before, having maybe a niche affiliate platform also integrated in order to have specific topic websites as well in your portfolio next to international big super affiliates such as couponing, cashback, and so forth. So basically defining a strategy is like making a puzzle and putting all pieces together and hopefully getting then the big picture. So you should try to have a look on the markets and the needs that you have, and then select which opportunity would be the one which you feel will run the most successfully. I tried to make a little bit a list of how to define a network depending on the markets that you're going to operate in. So if you're going to have just core markets only, then maybe working with an just one established big international network is more than sufficient. In the moment that you are going to have advanced markets only, the strategy is pretty much the same, looking at a network that has a big reach and that has local offices in the markets that you want to operate in. Emerging markets are really tricky, so here you will be highly dependent on the fact that you need someone on the spot, knowing the markets, educating the partners for you, trying to grow the market itself, and thus you should work with a local network on the spot. If you are going to have multiple markets in which you want to set up your program, then here once again, core market and advanced market, to find there a provider that is operating in different countries, not that difficult. It becomes difficult when emerging markets are getting in there, so it might be feasible to either work per market with a different network and then a local one, or having a global network on the one hand side and then add a local one on top of that to be sure to have the full coverage. Nevertheless, depending a little bit on the volumes that you might be able to reach with affiliate marketing, but especially on the personal resources you have, either in-house or through the agency that is running your programs, and the overall strategy, it might be feasible also to think about a private network solution, although this is not the most common, but it's a topic where you see that the trend is going to. I try to make a kind of decision tree, helping you then to define your strategy by looking at 5 key aspects which you should question yourself, and which will help to give you a direction with what kind of strategy you want to go live, and then depending on the result, then start to negotiate with some of the networks that might fall into this cluster. So first of all, the number of markets is highly important to know, and especially also what kind of markets are you going to operate? What is your brand awareness in regards to your products and services that you provide? But also what are the internal resources and the know-how, especially of the markets that you want to operate in? But also when it comes to budget and margins. Do I have a restricted budget so that I'm not even able to run a long-term affiliate program, but have to do it on a campaign basis? And what are the margins? How costly can the whole setup be in order to set up my, my affiliate programs? So the number of markets could be single or multiple. The market types could be, as mentioned before and shown on the map, either core, advanced, or emerging ones. The brand awareness could be high or low, the resources available or unavailable, and the budgets either open or limited. And then, depending on the different combinations of this, you can come to different conclusions for sure. So when we are going for a multiple market strategy where core and advanced markets are at the core of your business, and you are a brand with high brand awareness and maybe with an open budget, then you will probably opt for a global network, and then also with just a single network strategy. And maybe think of adding later on, if you struggle in a specific market, to add a local network in a second step. If you do have multiple markets with a high brand awareness and with a good staffed team that is also very, or has a high know-how on the markets that you're going to operate in, then why not opt for a private network as your single network strategy? And the third option, once again with various markets, but then maybe just focusing on emerging ones with restricted or unavailable resources and know-how, then for sure you will be highly dependent on having people on the spot, and those you would need to have a local network, which might be your first step, and then expanding to also a global one to have also, or to profit from cross-border international partners in the second step. So this is basically the theory, and summing it up, for sure, there are no fixed patterns, as every strategy needs to be aligned to the prerequisites of the company you have, depending on the markets they are going to select and your different internal factors. Important to know is that emerging markets will request to have local persons or local networks at hand. And depending on your budget, maybe to think about private networks. To put the theory now in practice, I just brought 3 case studies to see how in real life a network strategy was selected. Lufthansa is one of our clients, and we had to set up 39 markets within 1 year. After having had a briefing on what to focus on and what the limitations, boundaries were, we decided upon a single network strategy based on different regions. We decided for the European market as the core market to be entered and done via the European International Network Trade Doubler on an exclusive basis, and then for everything that was out of Europe, as the rest of the world, with the main focus on the US, working together with Commission Junction here once again on an exclusive basis. This resulted actually in heavily reduced network fees because of the exclusivities and the bundling of different markets in just one platform, and also in having quite some higher service levels because of the size of the advertisers in the network, so having their high attention brought us towards the account managers. A case study found on the page of PHG, Performance Horizon, as we are currently not having an advertiser in our portfolio that is already operating just on a private network solution. However, Adidas, a really big brand, very well known with high volumes, recently changed their complete approach and went to a sole private network solution because they actually wanted to have it centralized, bundled, and consolidated in a way. So they went to PHG also because of their sophisticated possibilities in regards to analysis and reporting functions. And due to the insights that they found there, they could identify trends and so forth. And then, last but not least, an example on how to opt for a local network. Deichmann, which is one of the biggest European shoe retailer, had as target to conquer the Eastern European market. Eastern Europe is still very immature when it comes to affiliate marketing. So here we decided to set up a local network for the regions or for the two markets, Czech and Slovakia, and did a cooperation with networks. They are operating on the CJ platform basis, but nevertheless have offices on the spot. And thanks to their know-how in the market, the fact that they were native speakers and that they were willing to educate the market, we had the possibility to realize or to identify a lot of local partners on the one hand side, but also to know how to best set up local promotions, for example. So 3 live cases on current setups of pretty high brands with different approaches depending on the targets that they set themselves. So I think we still have a few minutes time, so I'm happy if we could have a small discussion. I already see that there is a question coming up.
I would like to ask if it's possible to put this on slide share.
It is already.
Great. Just very small font.
Yeah. I just realized, but yeah, it's already on SlideShare and you can download it and then use it as a kind of checklist. Any further questions, remarks? Yeah?
What have you seen in sub-Saharan Africa? So we're talking outside of South Africa, Nigeria, Kenya, Tanzania, those sort of countries.
Yeah. So the question has been looking at the African continent, despite the fact of South Africa, which is already a pretty more or less mature market in affiliate marketing, if there are other markets that are popping up in affiliate, correct?
Yeah, and how do you overcome the lack of sophistication?
Well, Africa is still not very... affiliate marketing has not a foothold in there, so there are very, very little local networks, partly even blind networks, so that you don't see exactly, or there's a lack of transparency. So setting up a program in America for affiliate marketing, you need to be aware of the fact that the performance will be not very high, that you will have quite some struggles to overcome there. They will be dependent on local networks, but there are very, very few only. So maybe it's more wise to wait a little bit before starting off businesses in there when there is a level of publisher base that will generate enough traffic to make it reasonable to invest time and money to set up a program. So there are a lot of markets that still are complete to conquer for affiliate marketing still. Yes, please?
One of your first slides said 20K traffic, unique visitors as the minimum.
Yeah, exactly. Well, when talking to a lot of partners, and I think this is the last question that I'm able to respond to, talking to different partners in terms of affiliates, then you get the information that running specific marketing activities, technologies and so forth with less than 20K unique visitors, they will struggle in order to perform, because then the traffic on the web page is so little and the information that you get out of it that it's hard, for example, for retargeting partners to set up a portfolio and to display then ads and to find, for example, in pre-targeting, then profiles that you match. So if you have too little traffic, you will hardly get big partners on the program, because it's then not attractive enough, knowing that the volumes behind it will be also very, very low. So. Yeah, for sure. I'm still here for a while, so just meet me outside and then we can discuss further on.